Greetings to all. Dear children, in this video, I will continue with socialism in Europe and Russian Revolution. First topic that will be explained in this video is the Revolution of October in 1917. The conflict between the provisional government and the Bolsheviks grew. On 16th October 1917, Lenin persuaded the Petrograd Soviet and the Bolshevik Party to agree to a socialist seizure of power. To organize the seizure, a military revolutionary committee was appointed by the Soviet under Leon Trotsky. The Military Revolutionary Committee ordered its supporters to seize government officers and arrest ministers. By nightfall, the city was under the committee's control and the ministers had surrendered. At a meeting of All-Russian Congress of Soviets in Petrograd, the majority approved the Bolshevik action. What changed after October? Industry and banks were nationalized in November 1917, which meant that the government took over ownership and management. Land was declared as social property and peasants were allowed to seize the land of the nobility. The Bolshevik Party was renamed the Russian Communist Party. Elections were conducted in November 1917 to the Constituent Assembly, but they failed in majority. In January 1918, the Assembly rejected Bolshevik measures and Lenin dismissed the Assembly. Despite opposition, in March 1918, Bolsheviks made peace with Germany. The Bolshevik participated in the elections to the All-Russian Congress of Soviets, which became the parliament of the country. Russia became a one-party state. After October 1917, this led to experiments in the arts and architecture. But many became disillusioned because of the censorship the party encouraged. The Civil War. When the Bolsheviks ordered land redistribution, the Russian army began to break up. Non-Bolshevik socialists, liberals and supporters of autocracy condemned the Bolshevik uprising. They formed their troops and were called Greens, which would fight against the Bolshevik Red. The pro-Tsar Whites controlled most of the Russian Empire. They were supported by French, American, British and Japanese troops. All these fought a war with the Bolsheviks, making a socialist society. During the Civil War, industries and banks kept nationalized. Peasants were permitted to cultivate the land. Centralized planning process was introduced. Officials worked on how the economy will work and set targets for a 5-year period. During the first two plans, the government fixed all prices to promote industrial growth. Centralized planning led to economic growth, but rapid constructions led to poor working conditions. School system developed and arrangements were made for factory workers and peasants to enter universities. For women workers, crutches were established in factories for the children. Cheap public health care was provided. Model living quarters were set up for the workers. Stalinism and collectivization. The period of the early planned economy led to disaster of the collectivization of agriculture. By 1927 to 1928, the towns in the Soviet Russia faced an acute problem of grain supplies. Stalin introduced firm emergency measures. In 1928, party members toured the grain-producing areas, supervising enforced grain collections and raiding kulaks, the name for well-to-do peasants. After 1917, land had been given over to peasants. From 1929, the party forced all peasants to cultivate in collective farms, kolkhos. Peasants worked on the land and the kolkhoz profit was shared. Between 1929 and 1931, the number of cattle fell by one-third. The government of Stalin allowed some independent cultivation, but treated such cultivators unsympathetically. In spite of collectivization, production did not increase immediately, and due to bad harvest of 1930 to 1933, over 4 million people died. Throughout the country, accusations were made, and by 1939, over 2 million people were in prisons or labor camps. The global influence of the Russian Revolution and the USSR. In many countries, communist parties were formed, like the Communist Party of Great Britain. Non-Russians from outside the USSR participated in the Conference of the Peoples of the East. The Bolshevik-founded Comintern. Before the outbreak of the Second World War, the USSR had given socialism a global face. The USSR became a great power, and its industries and agriculture had developed, and the poor were being fed. By the end of the 20th century, the international reputation of the USSR as a socialist country had declined. Thanks for watching this video. God bless.